And welcome back, RJB here, with another replay from the Starcraft World 1 vs 1 ladder. And this is a replay from Season 15 between PuMpMyProbe and Thanks. So let's see how this match plays out, where it's going to go, how they're going to play, and if it's hype or not. One thing I do know, that whenever Thanks plays on the Zerg, matches tend to be pretty damn hype. Although I do spell some spot abuse already in the making, because this is on spot number 9. Unless this is, of course, the version that is the perfect version made by Feiner, which has a larger gap. No, not a larger gap. This is the regular version of the map. So Thanks here on the Zerg on spot number 9. And we have PuMpMyProbe here on the Terran on the top right corner of the map. And I'm going to speed the first phase up a little bit. And I'm going to keep my focus here on Thanks, because he does quite unorthodox builds. And this might already be looking unorthodox. Nope, not unorthodox at all. Although he is a little bit slow on the hatchery there in his choke. And he's placing it quite far away from the choke itself as well. But I'm sure he'll be just fine. So 2 barrels coming out from PuMpMyProbe, and a third one is probably on the way as well once he has the minerals for it. I think the game is still on. Yeah, the game is, this is normal speed. This is ×2. So there's a very early gas coming out for Thanks. In case you were wondering what I was just doing, I was looking at the timer to make sure whether it was on ×2 or ×1. It was on ×2, so I switched it back to ×1. So a very early hatchery coming out for Thanks. No second hatchery, no third hatchery. This is, I always count this as number 1. This is actually number, right there is hatchery number 2/3. The gas is out very early. He's saving up at least 3 larvae. And he already has the gas on the way. And now he's making 4 Zerglings. But I think this one is going to be number 5 and 6. Scout immediately goes to the right direction from PuMpMyProbe. It's a very, very good gamble on his part. There's let's see, the choke. Number 5 and 6 on the Zerglings. There is the first sunken coming down for PuMpMyProbe. PuMpMyProbe pulls his SV away, doesn't want to lose it against those Zerglings. This Marine is just scouting the top side there, but is now pulling back to base. He's balling up his Marines there in his choke, because he doesn't want those Zerglings to get in there or kill any of his Marines. Balling up is the right choice. Makes it very hard for Zerglings to fight into those Marines, or even get into the base, which is a great denial of information. Academy already coming out for PuMpMyProbe. The location is a little bit triggering for OCD people, but nonetheless, it has a function. It's there. That's the function it has. Engineering Bay coming out in the front to wall units out of the base. Not sure if I agree with that one, but it has its function, and he's most certainly put some thought into it. But there's already a lair on the way, Heartless Den on the way as well. So in this case, this Engineering Bay placement actually works out really well, because this is a dead giveaway, even though PuMpMyProbe doesn't know. This is a dead giveaway that Thanks is going for Hydralisks, and more of them, of course, into Lurkers. Almost got the money for that Lurker aspect upgrade. There it is. So going to keep progressing. Steam upgrade is on the way for PuMpMyProbe. Next up, Command Center on the way as well. No factory yet. And there he is finishing the wall with a bunker, and probably going to make a turret behind that as well, which is going to keep those Lurkers and Zerglings that Thanks is going to be trying to be attacking with out of his base. Firebats on the way as well. He's trying to fish for some offensive movements. Only a single sunken here in the front for Thanks, which is extremely, extremely risky. He's mostly playing on PuMpMyProbe, not getting himself any information. Of course, Thanks sees that the units are leaving the base, starts adding on more creep colonies for sunkens, but will he be in time, or will PuMpMyProbe stay here in the front for a little while longer? PuMpMyProbe is not scouting yet, so he will have time to get this up. After all, once he has 3 sunkens there, he will be safe. Although the Firebat might be able to slip through the top portion here. He stims up, heals up his Marines before he goes, and there he goes. He's going in. Will those Firebats make it through, or will those Firebats fall? Well, the Firebats are not being sent in. He is getting surrounded. A lot of those Zerglings went down, but most of the Marines that were there, the Firebats have all gone down, and the attack was not that successful for PuMpMyProbe. Great hold. Very easy hold. I'm not going to say great hold, but very easy hold there for Thanks. Queen's Nest already on the way. Is he already morphing any lurkers, or is he just saving his minerals? So there are the lurkers, alright. Got lurkers on the way. Factory on the way for PuMpMyProbe. There is an academy that has, of course, you can see the academy. I mean, he's making, I'm having trouble finding the word. Researching U-23H shells. Not that hard, I can just say marine range, but the word just couldn't come into my mind for some reason. Happens to everyone from time to time, where you're looking for a word, but the word just won't come, even though it's a very easy word, and you've said it many, many times over and over. Anyway, Thanks trying to push out with his lurkers. PuMpMyProbe making sure not to lose his marines. Does he have scan? The scan is there. Does he have energy on that scan? He does have energy on the scan, but he doesn't want to risk it. So Thanks is now walking around those marines. He's gonna cut them off from the base. Maybe have some of them walk into the lurker. PuMpMyProbe's now pulling his marines away back to the middle, but he's getting cut out by the other lurker. But the marines all staying alive. Now his scan comes out. Is he going to kill those lurkers, or will those lurkers stay alive? Lurkers being moved away. Lurker getting burrowed, and yeah, lurkers pretty much still fine. Now the marines are all going down though. Lurkers are both in the vision of this turret there, so eventually both lurkers do go down. So the lurker there in the middle of the map. Hive is almost finished up, adding on more hatcheries because he wants his economy up, because he honestly went for a very low drone build, and he's got to be droning up because PuMpMyProbe knows that he just has to go for the late game because of his superior spot advantage, because he has a corner spot against a mid spot which has the mineral patch exposed pretty far to the side of the base, which is honestly extremely imbalanced. And I'm honestly thinking that PuMpMyProbe is going to try his best to just abuse the fact that the location that Thanks is on is really, really bad and a disadvantage for him. But maybe Thanks can throw out a really strong counter punch or attack before any of that can happen. PuMpMyProbe still planning on camping, setting out a raid to kill those overlords there on the side to deny Thanks vision and hurt his supply count just a little bit, getting him supply stuck, I'm sure. There's still overlord over there, so pretty close to dying. Adding on more barracks as well. Science facility has finished. Control tower on the way, another stair and starport on the way as well. There goes overlord number 2. And now he's sending it out to scout the base of Thanks. Thanks placed 2 lurkers there around his hive, just in case that dropships are coming to drop units around the main. So that is a great defensive measure. Still almost nothing there in the front. Honestly, I think that PuMpMyProbe could have gone for a push instead of going for a campy playstyle, because the campy playstyle is honestly not that cool. Specifically because he's aiming for spot abuse, I'm 100% sure, which I think is not that cool. But you gotta take advantage of every single strategic edge that you have over your opponent, and PuMpMyProbe is definitely planning on taking advantage of it. 2 Scorches are out, but I think he's going to save those Scorches for vessels, just in case a vessel is on the way, and aiming for those drones. Wraith now getting more information, going for the drones, moving away from the Highlanders, but eventually the Highlanders do catch up with the Wraith, and the Wraith goes down. Scorch being pulled back, of course. He's already have a vessel out, vessel is on the way, almost finished, Radiate is on the way as well. Units out here on the middle of the map, and he's finally starting his push, 820 into the game. And there's not much to push, honestly. You could honestly just stim this entire mini-mass into that and kill it. But it is, of course, always safer to take your time and preserve your units and just go with the siege tank and kill those Sunkens, because those Sunkens die really quick against the damage of the siege tank. Arclight, shock, cannon, 70 damage. Let's see. Bam, there it goes. Well, almost 70 damage, because it's a little bit of regen on Sunken Colony. Regardless of that, Overlords now have speed, Overlords spreading out over the top side of the map, ensuring vision and a buffer zone against those vessels. Vessel comes in, Vessel has enough energy for a Radiate. Lurkers burrowing next to the green there on the ground. Now the Vessel is going for the drones, thus Thanks have burrow upgrade for those drones. It looks like he does not have burrow upgrade for the drones, and it means that a lot of drones, woo! About 20 drones there going down. That's an extremely unfortunate hit for Thanks. Great hit for PuMpMyProbe. And I respect that PuMpMyProbe didn't go for the top angle, just went for the side angle, so no abuse. Thanks. Might be getting his burrow upgrade in the near future once he can afford it, because his gas is quite low. And he has to throw out a counterpunch right now, and he knows he has to throw the counterpunch because he has the filer and he doesn't have a lot of minerals. He has to start dealing some counter damage here, and he walks into those units there on the middle. There's no swarm there yet, which means he's going to lose at least a couple of his units there. But in the end, Fangs comes out on top in that exchange, but it did cost him a little bit more than I think he would have wanted to lose. Marine goes for the Defiler. The Defiler goes down before a swarm comes out, which means that Fangs now has to burrow. And he does get great kills on those Marines there, but eventually I don't think he can push in. Or can he? Right, it looks like he's pushing in. He should have pulled this up as well, because now those units here are not really getting a great shot off. He could have burrowed his lurkers here and probably killed this entire section if he had pulled them up in time, but of course, small little oversights and misplays happen to everyone, even the best players. Filer, 200 energy, swarm comes down here in the pathway of PuMpMyProbe's base. PuMpMyProbe is just very slowly building up. Very slowly building up. 112 supply against 72. Fangs is still trying to recover from that hit on his drones. 31 drones now, still a very low drone count, but he's planning on just being very, very aggressive. Sending out waves and waves of waves and more waves of Zerglings and Lurkers to slowly push into PuMpMyProbe's base. He's managed to take over the chokes, the frontal portion of the choke here, but he's currently lacking the Filers, so he's got to send over the Filer that is still in the base, and I don't think it will arrive in time to renew the swarm here. Maybe it will arrive on time, but I don't think it will, which means that these units here are in danger of dying before the Defiler arrives. Fangs might have to pull those back. Of course, vessels there in the back, being safe, and mostly just aiming for Defilers to prevent Fangs from throwing down any of those those swarms. There he goes, scouting for the Defiler, but he's got no energy on any of those vessels. So another Dark Swarm comes out just in time, which means that now more units can move forward. He's moving forward his Lurkers at the same time as he's moving forward his Zerglings. But looks like the Defilers might be going. The Defilers stay alive. Zerglings now cleaning out a lot of units here in PuMpMyProbe's base. PuMpMyProbe is playing it very slow but collected, but Fangs is kind of just brute forcing his way in there with superior speed and micro management. Yeah, hasn't really added on to his drones all that much, although he's now on 45 drones, so very slowly recovering while he's throwing out non-stop attacks on PuMpMyProbe. Now he's trying to go for the minerals, or is he not? All the lurkers here have gone down, vessels hanging there in the air, a couple of tanks there in between the starports and factories, not doing all that much. And Zergling's just going for the depots, getting at least something down, but he fails to get PuMpMyProbe supply stuck, so PuMpMyProbe is not really feeling the damage and the hurt from that one all that much. Valkyries hunting for Overlords. There's 2 Scorches there, but I don't think the Scorches will be enough to deal with these 2 Valkyries. He's losing a couple of his Overlords, but in the end, the Spores on the low ground there, killing the Valkyries before he really takes any damage onto his Overlords. Vessel moving out. Will he spot it? And Vessel doesn't get spotted. He uses Scorches to kill the Valkyrie earlier. This is more important than the fight happening here, so let's look at this. He's gonna get kills. There is the Radiate. No burrow. No burrow once again. That means another 12 drones going down there, or maybe a couple less drones. I didn't see the exact counter of number of drones he had right there at the moment. So a lurker here in the choke, protected by the swarm. Does he have a radius? Energy for 1 Radiate. But he's just gonna wait for this Dark Swarm to end, because he sees that there is no Defiler anywhere near, and he's got these vessels spaced up quite deep, so you can intercept the Defilers before they can reach the lurker there and throw down another swarm. So more factors coming down for PuMpMyProbe. Still playing it very slow, and honestly, I don't know if he's forced to be camping here, but he's deciding to camp it out. He's deciding to camp it out, knowing he's got a bigger economy, but he's also at the same time giving Fangs the opportunity to grow bigger and bigger. But the longer the game goes on, the harder it becomes for Fangs to pull out a win, purely because this opportunity for having spot abuse on the Zerg mineral patch here from this location makes it very, very hard. And it becomes harder and harder for the Zerg to penetrate into the Terran base through the front the longer the game goes on. So PuMpMyProbe is setting himself up for a long game, which is technically in his advantage. But whether that advantage persists against a player of Fangs' level, I'm not too sure. Units moving in, Lurker is trying to get down on He burrows just outside of the Dark Swarm. That's unfortunate. He should have waited a little longer and burrowed it up there. Though the Dark Swarms were very close to ending. 152 against 102 supply, 55 drones, 76 SCVs. Another mass of Zerglings here, all balled up to the Defilers. Both have energy, but wait, one has energy. Alright, 6 more hatcheries coming out. Upgrades are on the way. The current upgrade state is 2 carapace, 0 attack damage. And 0-1 for PuMpMyProbe, so 1 attack, 0 armor for those tanks. The Marines are on 0-0. So he isn't really being diligent in keeping his upgrades up. But he does have 2 armories, but both armories are not upgrading at the moment. Zerglings there managed to make their way through. Great Plague has come down on the tanks here. Tanks on very low HP. His feet there in the mix, either to repair or build turrets. And yeah, it looks like Thanks is... Oh wait, another one. And this time around, he gets 8 kills on those drones. He's gonna hang around for a little while longer. I'm really surprised. Finally, he's getting burrow upgrade. I was really surprised he didn't have it already. There comes another vessel, and it gets sniped down, but there comes another vessel even, and this one gets another radiate down on those drones. This time around, he does manage to split up his drones really nicely. Only 2 drones go down for Thanks, so he managed to keep his economy alive, or at least doesn't take an economic hit just yet. Manages to extend the game. But it does look like PuMpMyProbe is really fishing for those drones, aiming for them, but at least he's not going over the top side here. He's going from the side, even though this distance is still quite short. He's not spot abusing yet. But that's great from PuMpMyProbe. That's a little bit of a respectful play from him. Not spot abusing. Showing... I think he's trying to show that he can do this without spot abuse. His base, though, is looking like a mess. But very slowly, he's advancing over the map. He's taking control of the middle. So he's went from his choke, where the Lurker Swarms were being thrown down by Thanks, all the way up to the opposite side of the map in Thanks' choke, and Thanks' Lurkers are bugging out a little bit there, but eventually they do manage to get on top of the tanks. Really managed to burrow. Both Lurkers have burrowed, but one of them is dying to irradiate. Now a huge swarm of Zerglings is coming through that Dark Swarm as well, but PuMpMyProbe has moved his tanks out of the Dark Swarm, which means it's pretty hard for those Zerglings to really get some good hits down on those tanks, because the Marines that are there in the mix are making sure to take down all the Zerglings right before they can hit the tanks. Zerglings, of course, already haven't taken a lot of damage from the tanks. Go down within only a matter of thousandths of a second, basically. So more Lurkers moving up. Still burrowing up here. And he's not trying to push and be aggressive. He's just playing a little bit conservatively. Mineral count has dropped quite low this time around. He's got 7 gas, which means that's 21 drones on the gas, 3 per gas, which means that he only has about 35, maybe less drones on his minerals, which is honestly not that many. Considering you can get 50 on there, and having 50 on there would definitely boost his economy, but at the moment he's forced to keep that Lurker Swarm in the front there alive, and more units are streaming in from PuMpMyProbe, who set up a pretty great tank mass up here on the middle, with vessels flying overhead, and of course Marines in the mix there as well, to make sure that any Scorches flying in get taken out by the Marines before they can hit the vessels. Setting himself up for more swarms. I think he's going to try to push out very soon, but he needs more of... Oh, great radiate coming down there from the vessel on the Defiler. Denies at least one Defiler from getting a Dark Swarm down. Top of those Lurkers, which is of course aimed at keeping Thanks out of the base. PuMpMyProbe out of the base. 2 more vessels going for the Defilers, but only a single Defiler gets radiated. And he just eats it up before it dies, preserves, gets at least something out of it. That's pretty good. Another Defiler there out for Thanks. He threw down another Dark Swarm yet again. How many? It's only 3 Lurkers under the Dark Swarm. I think he's going for an Overlord drop. He's still got upgrades on the way. 3 Carapace. I think he's also researching a melee and, how do you call it again? Needle Spine upgrade for the Hydralisks and the Zerglings. Doesn't have a great Aspire yet. He's not really making a lot of Scorches to take down those vessels. And I think he's going for the Lawnmower or the Eraser move once again. We got Defensive Matrix down on both those vessels, but will the vessels get in range? No, the vessels don't get in range to hit those drones. And in the meantime, Thanks has added on a couple more drones onto his minerals, so his economy is in a better shape now than it was minutes ago. But a lot of vessels and Valkyries once again moving out over the middle of the map and top side of the map, and definitely aiming to kill whatever they meet. And this is a very bad timing here for Thanks, because he's got those Overlords filled up with Defilers and, how do you call them again? Defilers and Lurkers. And his Valkyrie just so happens to find them, which is quite painful. Because if PuMpMyProbe had not seen those Overlords, this could have been a game-ending drop right on top here on the minerals of PuMpMyProbe and probably gotten all of his SCVs and his main command center. But instead, he managed to find it, and here 2 more vessels moving in, gets 2 radiates down. Will Thanks burrow? Thanks burrows, but he doesn't burrow in time. He lost about 20 of his drones there. Pretty big hit, but nothing he can't recover from. Only 2 lurkers left there, and he's radiating on top of the Multis, and Thanks didn't notice. This means that most of these Multis will go down before he arrives on the scene. That's a pretty dark, painful hit for Thanks, but Thanks now goes in, using his Multis to protect his Overlords, but his Multis are going in a little bit too fast. Now he goes back onto the Valkyries, makes sure those Multis keep taking focus. Lurkers dropping on the low ground, Defilers dropping in there as well. And there's Dark Swarm. Dark Swarm comes down on top of the Lurkers. Lurkers now firing away on those SCVs and Nexus command center at the same time. PuMpMyProbe is trying to push in deeper, but the Lurk Swarm here in the front is keeping PuMpMyProbe out of the base. These spores here have been set up to keep vessels away from the Defilers in the back, but he has been managing to take down those Defilers quite well. At the meantime, all the SCVs here have gone down, only 15 SCVs left for PuMpMyProbe. PuMpMyProbe didn't decide to lift up his command center, and he's not lifting this one up either. And he's gotten another Lurker Swarm down, up down here, which is keeping anything away from getting damaged out on these guys. Because these are zoning all the tanks away here. Tanks even going down to the Lurkers there. He managed to finally get a Radiate down on the Defiler, but the Defiler might get another Dark Swarm off, or will it not? It will not get another Dark Swarm off, but he's already moving his Lurkers up to the depots, just adjacent to it. Not burrowing them though, because he's focused on his base, where his Lurker Swarm just ended, which means that now PuMpMyProbe has to take his chances and move in a little bit closer, but he does. Oh, he managed to kill the Lurker there. But those Zerglings do manage to penetrate through, but eventually do go down. Now the depots here are going down rather quick, because there's a lot of Lurkers there hammering away on those depots. Those Lurkers there also still alive, but now the Overlords are in danger of dying, because those Valkyries are just hammering away on them with ease. Nothing there to oppose them. And surprisingly, Thanks got in supply stuff because of it as well. And it means he's gonna have to replace his Overlords rather soon, but he's moving in very slowly here. Pushing out, but the Lurkers are incapable of really getting on top of those tanks, which is very unfortunate because the Hydralisks are blocking his own Lurkers. And now there's no Swarm, but the Zerglings now coming through, getting surrounds on those tanks, then moving them forward, getting another surround on the tanks behind the tanks he just killed, and PuMpMyProbe calls it GG, because he knows he cannot come back from this one. Being supply stuck, losing his entire mass on the middle, and of course still being supply stuck because he lost all of his depots here inside of his base. And Thanks comes out on top. PuMpMyProbe went for the option to camp, even though he didn't really have to camp, honestly. He could have honestly just gone for the counter push and played more aggressive against Thanks, because Thanks' early game was very risky. Extremely risky. And I think that if PuMpMyProbe had watched more replays of Thanks, specifically his Zerg, he would have realized that you gotta go aggressive early against Thanks' Zerg. Otherwise, he's gonna keep throwing out attacks at you with his superior APM and multitasking, and just brute force his way through the game. And that's basically what he did here. He brute forced his way through the most part of this game and managed to land a pretty good Lurker drop there right on top of PuMpMyProbe's workers and gets himself the win. And I'm somewhat surprised that PuMpMyProbe didn't try to capitalize on the spot abuse more, but I also respect him for it, because capitalizing on spot abuse is honestly a low blow. I personally really dislike it. But that's just the way the game rolls. So yeah, thanks for watching. And see you some other time.